go. Oh, yeah, so easy forward, go.
This whale is fighting for its life.
Yeah, the angle was kind of...
Strangled by fishing gear. It's one of the most endangered whale species on Earth.
So easy forward, go.
North Atlantic right whale species is struggling to survive at this point.
Hey, keep going. See if I can get a left head here.
There are only about 360 left on the entire planet.
The crisis is quite bad and quite shocking to me.
We're losing too many animals, and we're not getting enough calves, is the bottom line.
Scientists and conservationists are using cutting-edge technologies to protect and save the species and open up a whole new understanding about these gentle giants. North Atlantic right whales are found from Florida all the way up the Atlantic coast to Canada.
There's a north-south migration based on food and where they're going to give birth.
Every year, many right whales migrate from their calving grounds in Florida, Georgia, and North Carolina up to feeding grounds in the Gulf of St. Lawrence.
A female going down to Florida and Georgia, she's probably going down there for something about water temperature because there's no food for her to eat. The vast majority of the population is going to stay where the food is.
There's ship traffic all along this migratory route, putting the whales at great risk in their habitat. They must navigate a dangerous and deadly man-made obstacle course of busy shipping lanes and commercial fishing areas. A leading cause of death and injury to the right whale is from vessel strikes.
Right whales are prone to getting hit by ships. We don't understand all the reasons why, but they do, and it's often fatal.
The other major problem is entanglement in fishing gear.
For all whale species, including North Atlantic right whales, there are parts of their range that have so much rope that it can be very difficult for the animals to maneuver through it without becoming entangled. They're likely going to encounter it in the places where we're hunting for our food. So this will always be an issue as long as we're both coexisting in this ocean.
The rope, the nets that they're wrapped up in, make it harder for them to swim, it increases the drag, and so they lose energies. And as a result, they've been losing weight, losing condition, they're in ill health.
One thing that is certain: time is running out.
In my career of doing this work since 1998, we were at a high point of 500 individual North Atlantic right whales. Now we're down to about 360.
There's an animal in Cape Cod Bay right now, or it was there a few days ago, called snow cone, that has been entangled.
A snow cone is a mature female. She was a mother last year in 2020, and she hadn't been seen since last July. And during that time, she had run into a lot of trouble. When the aerial team found her in the bay, she was carrying hundreds of feet of rope from her mouth. She also had an extremely severe wound around her upper jaw.
I see it!
So we had to make a very difficult decision about, how are we going to help this individual whale?
I'm gonna go!
What we have to do is try to get the whale into a position where they can shed their entanglement on their own. Recognize that the vast majority of right whales have become entangled at least once in their life already, which tells us that many individuals are getting entangled and getting themselves out of it. And we can see that because of the injuries, the scarring on their body from those events.
North Atlantic right whales are baleen whales, giants that feed on tiny organisms. they can grow up to 52 feet long and live for 70 years. Right whales feed anywhere from the water's surface to the bottom of the water column. They skim feed by opening their mouths while swimming slowly through large patches of copepods and other zooplankton.
The food that right whales eat is a small planktonic organism, a copepod, which occur in clouds of varying densities, and they have to find high densities of these animals. Each animal is only about the size of half a grain of rice. And so given that, wherever the food is most abundant and most concentrated, that's where the whales go.
In addition to ship strikes and fishing gear entanglements, their food sources and habitats are dwindling. Although whaling is no longer legal, impacts from human activity is still the greatest threat to the right whale.
Killing North Atlantic right whales in the Bay of Biscay by the Basques and others was a commercial entity in 1100. So they've had 1,000 years of whaling that has been knocking them down.
When whaling was outlawed, it was a chance for the right whale and other whale species to recover. But in the same decade, commercial fishing exploded. The New England fishing industry has been around since 1600. Early settlers reported so much cod in these waters that one explorer changed the name of Cape St. James to Cape Cod. Rob Martin has been fishing for lobster in these waters for decades.
Been fishing now for about 40 years. That's all I've ever done. My main fishery has been lobstering. When I was like 13, 14, and saw lobsters on the beach, and I've been fishing ever since. That's what I always wanted to do.
For centuries, Rob and many others have laid their traps along the ocean floor. These traps connect to a surface buoy by a long rope. That amounts to a gigantic maze of rope for whales to run into along the eastern seaboard. Safe zones have been established to provide safe areas for whales to feed and migrate, but restricts commercial fishing activities.
The areas that are closed for the North Atlantic right whale to reduce risk of severe lethal entanglements. It affected at least 1/3 of my income potential not being able to go. So like I said, we're trying to get back.
Over the years, right whales have been identified and monitored from aerial surveys. They're not tagged like other endangered fish, but identified by their unique markings.
The beautiful thing about North Atlantic right whales is that you can identify the individuals by the patterns of thickened skin on their heads, what we call callosities.
Researchers have created a database of most of the remaining whales by these markings. Each is given a number and a name.
What that does is allows you to measure the length and a series of widths of the animal, which you can convert into girths and sense how big the animal was, how fat it was. And that has been very valuable information.
When we see photographs of right whales from other oceans, for example, in the Southern Ocean, we can immediately tell the difference between the two different species. The North Atlantic right whale is covered in scars from prior injuries. Their overall body condition is less than their sister species to the south. And so the visual impact of seeing a North Atlantic right whale versus one from the Southern Ocean is shockingly different.
Right whales communicate using low-frequency moans, groans, and pulses, which may maintain contact between individuals, communicate threats, signal aggression, or be used for other social reasons.
Light is not very useful underwater. Sound travels a lot farther. So whales use sounds mostly for communication, but the echoes that they receive back tells them something about the environment that they're in.
Humans are visual animals, so we use sight to tell us where everything is, while, right whales, they'll use sound to tell them where they are and who's around and where they need to go next.
It used to be that the only way to keep track of the right whale was from the air. Now, scientists like Mark Baumgartner and Sophie Van Paris are using sound and acoustic technology to both track the whales and alert nearby ships that they're near.
What we've tried to do is use the acoustics to sort of trigger visual observation. They'll use that information to go out and look to find whales. It improves the efficiency of their surveys, and then they can take photographs, they can see if animals are entangled, what their health condition is.
And they're making several new discoveries about the species through sound.
North Atlantic right whales, they produce a whole variety of different calls, but they have this particular call called the up call, which is this contact call that they do to stay in touch with each other.
We identify the species by the types of sounds they make, and we identified that there are whales there.
This new technology is called real-time acoustics.
Sound is incredibly useful for assessing populations of marine mammals. The acoustic recorders can go out to sea. It doesn't matter what the weather is. They record 24/7, so it can be pitch black or daylight.
That is listening and then sending information about what is heard back to shore so that people can review it immediately and do something about it.
The real-time information, you get to see that much more quickly, and you can actually follow movements as the right whales move up and down into different regions.
5 meters away.
Real-time data that can alert ships and fishing vessels much quicker than archival data.
These technological advantages have been really helpful, particularly where it comes to mitigating, so that means preventing vessel strikes, because that information from the real-time acoustics can be sent to vessels as they come into shipping lanes, and it can help them not just know to slow down, but also to be extra alert to the fact that right whales have been around.
Man-made sounds in the ocean aren't making things any easier.
We live in an industrialized ocean. There's a lot of activities going on. There's shipping activity, there could be pile driving, there could be seismic exploration. As scientists, we think that has a significant impact on their health and their ability to communicate with one another.
Just as Cape Cod lobstermen have done for centuries, Rob Martin checks his traps by looking for buoys connected to them by ropes.
So rope's been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years to catch fish and shellfish, to pull things out of the ocean. Unfortunately, they're very dangerous for whales. And so if you want to eliminate entanglements in rope, in some way, shape, or form, you have to eliminate the rope.
And now, a unique consortium comprised of both the commercial fishing and environmental science groups are banding together to find a solution. In order to do that, it's important to fully understand what happens when a whale becomes entangled.
A lot of our current understanding of entanglement comes from the gear that we have removed from whales over the years. We sort of came to the conclusion that there is no fishing gear that is necessarily more or less lethal to a whale. Really, the crux of the problem is rope itself.
Ropes wrapped around a whale's head, mouth and baleen, flippers and flukes can cause deep lacerations, deformities in bones, and partial or total amputations. In a number of cases, ropes were wrapped around a single whale 30 to 50 times.
These animals are so big and strong, they can actually rip that fishing gear off the seafloor and carry it with them for thousands of kilometers.
Rope can limit a whale's ability to open its mouth, breathe, and create a watertight blowhole seal when diving, leading to starvation and drowning.
It's a very small minority of the animals that actually die from the entanglements. The majority do survive, and they endure these entanglements from minutes to hours to days to months.
And when you look at the tracks of where those animals went during the time that they were entangled, we're talking about thousands and thousands of kilometers that they're covering.
One of the most tragic examples of this is the story of Spinnaker, a humpback whale.
So above me is Spinnaker. This is a whale that I've known most of my adult life. I also know her mother, her grandmother. The entanglement that's embedded in her skull is the actual entanglement that we could not remove in the 3 different times that we disentangled her in her life. There's no specimen like this on Earth as far as we know. She was found with her entanglement still embedded, and we found a way of preserving her skeleton with that intact, just so people could truly understand, first of all, what we're up against trying to disentangle them, but also the reason why we're trying to stop entanglements to begin with. And the entanglement that she was dealing with is not uncommon for a right whale either. And so a fracture in the skull like that is something we could also expect in a right whale.
80% plus of North Atlantic right whales show evidence of entanglement. Some of those animals have been entangled multiple times, and some of these entanglements are minor, and some of them are major. And, you know, it's death by 1,000 cuts.
When a whale is reported entangled, first responders get to the site, monitor and stand by the animal until the primary rescue team arrives, and if possible, free the animal.
We're right here. Tail flukes are right here.
The help that we ask for from the commercial fishing industry is to report entangled whales. The primary occupation of my team is to find animals, remove the entanglement, and get the animals back into the population.
Cut, we're good.
And so we rely on all kinds of mariners to see those entanglements and report them to us. These are very large wild animals. They're up to 50, 60 tons. They have no interest in being approached by vessels. We try to get to the animal as quickly as possible. We have to try to figure out the best we can how the whale is entangled. And usually the first thing that we do is use a grappling hook. And that grappling hook has a long rope attached to it with a buoy on the end. And we try to get that grappling hook into the fishing gear that's caught on the whale's body.
Okay, buoy over, buoy over.
And the buoy now does a few things for us. While the whale is down on a dive, sometimes for 20 minutes at a time, we can't see where the whale is. But with the buoy floating at the surface, it gives us an idea about where the whale is. Right whales, we get about 6 or 7 cases per year. And our track record with disentangling them is around 50%.
Since rescue efforts may go on for days, the first responders may attach a satellite VHF tag beacon to the entangled gear, so rescuers can track and locate the animal later.
It's rare for us to be able to disentangle a right whale in one go.
Very close, but I wasn't going to take that.
We developed a buoy that was modified to hold technology that would allow it to communicate with satellites. And so if we cannot get the job done by the end of the day, we outfit the whale with a telemetry buoy and let the whale go.
Meanwhile, researchers, engineers, and commercial fishing entities are inching closer to a solution. They're trying many rope alternatives.
We're just trying to get back into a parts of a closed area to fish, just to use the stuff and see how it works and just make it better from there. I'd consider myself an environmentalist, I'm a fisherman, but if I wasn't, I wouldn't have nothing to catch.
There have been ideas to make the rope glow in the dark so that the whales could see it. Make the rope stiff, make the rope thin, make it weak.
Came up with the 1,700-pound sleeve, which breaks under 1,700 pounds.
But all agree these are band-aids until a feasible ropeless solution is in place.
We can modify as much as we want, but at the end of the day, if we have rope, we still have the same problem that we've always had. So the best strategy is reducing the overall amount of rope that the whales are likely to encounter. And that's easy for me to say, but that's actually very difficult to enact without impacting fishing communities like the one that I live in.
The commercial fishing industry is now testing 2 new acoustic retrieval technologies. One that keeps the rope on the seafloor until it is needed.
One way is to attach what are called acoustic releases to gear that, when given an acoustic command, they release and allow a rope to come to the surface that is only there when the person wants to retrieve the gear. And so once that rope appears, it's just like a normal roped fishing gear, and you can pull it on board.
And the other that uses an airbag to bring the trap to the surface.
The edge tech system, the rope comes out of the trap for a vertical line when you deploy it. The smelt system fills up an airbag, and it comes up, but I still have my ground line to the trolley.
I think the idea of using acoustic traps is a great one, because for most of the time there will be no rope in the water column for a whale to get entangled in. So if these forms of technology can actually be used by fishermen to make a living, then I would only see it as a win-win.
Ropeless fishing gear technologies will not only help protect whales, but will also open up restricted waters for fishing.
The fishermen that I talk to are very aware of the problem of right whales, and they see that this can be a threat to their livelihood, and so they're proactive.
It's expensive at the moment to try to do, but we've been working on things to try to solve that. I've been doing it for a long time. I've seen a lot and want to solve a problem.
Moving forward, the objectives are clear.
Number 1 priority is to reduce entanglement. The number 2 priority is to reduce vessel strike. We've lost 3 calves to vessel strikes in the last year. They're both big deals, and we need to deal with both of them.
Real-time acoustic data is providing promising options, both for tracking and monitoring.
Getting to the point where we're putting out enough stations or autonomous platforms, buoys and gliders, to really tell us something meaningful about where right whales are right now in this moment. And that, I feel, has been a big change in how we monitor right whales.
With the cooperation between commercial fishing and the science community, these experts believe a win-win solution is possible. They have dolphin-safe tuna, so the concept for whale-safe lobster is very real.
I don't believe it's an either-or thing. I do believe that we can have our lobster and eat it, and the whales can survive.
What we're trying to do is basically hold the ground as much as we can to try to buy some time for the species while we get our act together with meaningfully reducing rope in their habitat. And I should be clear with my language. I'm not asking for a reduction in fishing. I am asking for a reduction of rope.
Very few people have ever seen a right whale in their life. They're really difficult to access. They're in U.S. waters close to shore. The real-time acoustic technology is a way for the public and government regulators to continually be reminded. They all need to know that this highly endangered species is in their area. And with that information, they can modify their practices. Ships can slow down.
If you're in an area where right whales are common, for sure, slow down. 10 knots is a good number to hit.
We ask that mariners do not try to attempt a disentanglement. Either contact the U.S. Coast Guard immediately or contact any hotline that's within your neighborhood.
As time ticks away, the race is on to turn the tide for the North Atlantic right whale.
This species is functionally gone. It will be extinct very, very shortly. And so I worry a lot about right whales kind of slipping away from us. And the precipitous decline in the last few years has been very, very scary.
We're in deep, deep trouble. And if this country and Canada can't between us and do what has to be done to turn this around, shame on us.
But we're trying to be ahead of the curve. I want to be at the table figuring the stuff out. If you're working together, that's how you're going to solve something.
I am hopeful because there's a new spirit of cooperation and collaboration between the fishermen, the scientists, the government. We're all in the same game. We're trying to make it work.
The amount of technology, the amount of brilliance, the amount of willingness to change is there that we can actually make a real difference.